Hi everyone, in this video I'll be discussing about the pattern of TGT Social Science Male exam which was held on September 9, 2018 conducted by DSSSB. So as we all know, the paper is of 200 marks divided into part A and part B of 100 marks each, where part A comprises of general awareness and mathematics and reasoning, English and Hindi, whereas part B comprise of your post specific knowledge, subject knowledge. So, part B of TGT Social Science Male exam, I have analyzed and split up the paper in what sections of social science did the questions came from. So, I will be telling you how many questions came from which part of social science, right? So, broadly, I have divided the paper into 5 parts as you can see here: psychology, pedagogy general, then economics and business studies, and then there were questions from history, then there were questions from geography, and then polity. Okay, so very shortly I'll be discussing about how many questions came from which topic and what are the topics those were covered over here. So the first is psychology, pedagogy, and general. Well, a major portion came from this part: psychology, pedagogy, and general. So, if you are a B.Ed fellow, obviously, which you would be for a TGT exam, I think this is going to be um, clear if you are thorough with the theories and all the B.Ed concepts that you have done in your B.Ed education. And see, as you can see here, there were 21 questions which were clearly from psychology, pedagogy, and learning. Also, this section comprised of some questions of general studies, very general, common sense questions as well. Let me tell you an example. For example, there were questions like, what are the attributes, what is the most important attribute of a teacher? So the answer was democratic. So a teacher has to be democratic. Right. Okay, and then the questions regarding psychology. For example, there were questions on Maslow's hierarchy of social needs. And then there were questions about various learning skills, collaborative skills, classroom management, etc. And yeah. So I guess this part is going to be thorough if we are thorough with the B.Ed theorems. Okay, moving on to the next part, economics. Well, it is a noted pattern that DSSSB gives a major portion from economics. So, if you are not a commerce student, so this portion is not something that we can really ignore if you want to be thorough through social science, if you want to be thorough through this exam. So, economics constituted a major portion. Let me tell you what are the topics that were basically covered. For example, there were topics like GDP or GNP, personal income, national income, and likewise, so macro and micro. You need to have a basic knowledge about these. The concepts of demand and supply, for example, and the concepts of price elasticity, and various topics like the types of goods. Is it a substitute good, is it a complementary goods? Such questions came from economics section. And also this section comprised of business studies. Well, surprisingly, there were questions from business studies. But they were very general sort of questions. So if you have a basic idea about what business studies, what management basically is about, management, you will be able to be thorough through this, because it requires a little of a very general understanding of organizations. For example, there were questions like, what are the steps involved in managing an organization? Is it planning? Is it controlling? Is it directing? So, of course, even though you're not a commerce student or you have not studied business studies at all, you will be able to know that, of course, it is planning. The first step is obviously planning for any uh, managing any organization. So, yes, but we cannot ignore this big section. Economics is a must. Okay. So some of the topics that were covered in this exam in BST were management, organizational, strategies, and then motivation. Because, see, there is a link between topics. See, motivation is a topic that is not something which is very, you can say that it comprises of just business studies portion only, because we have studied it in B.Ed also. So, of course, there is a greater chance of questions on motivation and leadership. So you have to be thorough through these topics. And moving on to the next portion is history. So, 15 questions came from history. Well, I guess it is quite uneasy to note that the questions would be from Delhi Sultanate. If you want to make sure that all your answers are correct, you have to have a knowledge about a very thorough knowledge about Delhi Sultanate. Delhi Sultanate is a must. And then there was one question about the Vedas, the Rig Veda basically, um, and which is very general. If you know about the timeline of history, you would be able to do it. Then there can be questions about ancient history and medieval history. However, surprisingly, there was no question from the modern history. However, there was one question from world history, but there were absolutely no questions from the modern history. Okay, so for history, as I have said, that it is a must to do medieval history and a basic knowledge of ancient history. Okay, so the next portion is geography. So, well, only 10 questions came from geography and only 8 questions from polity. So this is a section that I guess you need to pay little less attention to. Like for geography, if you are thorough with class 9th and class 10th NCRT, you would be able to do good, because not a single question came from any other topic except this. You need to be very clear with the physiographic divisions of India, everything in detail, the drainage pattern, the physiographic division, the mountains, the rivers, the disasters, everything. Then, next topic is polity. So, from political science or civics, there were questions. Some of the questions were which require a basic political science knowledge. For example, questions on Marxism, or there may be questions from communism and socialism. So you need to know uh, what these terms are. Then there were questions on books and authors. Well, these questions, I guess, there is absolutely no use to prepare this part of the paper because it is quite unpredictable. We cannot really predict how it may arise. Okay. And then there were some general questions which I guess which requires a basic common sense. Okay guys, so this was the analysis and the topic wise split up of TGT Social Science Male exam. I suppose this is going to be helpful for the potential female candidates for the same exam, whose exam is going to be held in the next month. I guess the date is October 15th, and likewise there are 3 dates for the same. So if you find this video useful, please let me know by giving it a thumbs up. Also subscribe to my channel because I will be covering these topics in detail, explaining the topics, providing you with the answers of the paper as well. So stay tuned. Thank you.